Tour de France.
In the Alps yesterday, the Tour de France was in angry mood. It destroyed the hopes of many. Out of the race goes the former winner, Laurent Fignon. He was riding his final tour. Finishing in the ambulance, the Belgian Wilfred Nellison, who had led the race in the opening week. Eliminated the green jersey of points leader, Mario Cipollini. The Tour shapes a rider's character, and even in this contest, rivals help each other just to survive. The Alps yesterday, the longest stage today. Hello and welcome to the Tour de France. Well, after 2 days in the chill air of the high mountains, we've now descended to the shores of the Mediterranean here at Marseille. The riders on the way here, and for them, it'll mean a day in the saddle lasting almost 8 hours. Now, Miguel Indurain had 2 great days in the mountains, and now he leads this race by 3 minutes and 23 seconds. He's ahead of Alvaro Mejia of Colombia. Then comes Zenon Yazkula, still the surprise in this race. Tony Rominger, once in the hundreds overall, now up to 4th place. Bjorn Ries is 5th. Of the other big names, they have a lot of time now to make up. Andy Hampsten, Claudio Chiappucci, Eric Breukink and Gianni Bugno. Robert Miller, who had a marvellous day out yesterday, climbed up to 34th place overall, and he will look forward now to the Pyrenees. Miguel Indurain, in just 3 racing days, has made up time from 3 minutes 17 seconds behind to that gap 3 minutes 23 seconds in the lead. Now, one man who knows all about winning the Tour de France is Eddy Merckx. He's won it 5 times. He had this to say about Miguel Indurain.
He's the best now. I think time trial rider like him now, nobody can beat him in this Tour de France, I think so.
And do you think anybody can really try and take the yellow jersey from Miguel and win the Tour de France this year?
I don't think so, because there are not really great climbers in this moment, and also the climber they are 30 years old, so I don't see nobody to beat Miguel in this Tour.
And the interviewer there was Alan Piper, a rider himself in the Tour de France last year. Today is Miguel Indurain's 29th birthday, and there'll be some who will hope that he slows down with age. The 287 kilometres today, not as flat as you might expect as we roll towards the Mediterranean, a series of small climbs ending with a steep one as we go into Marseille. And the big bunch missing a few names today, 150 only starting out from Isola at 9:30 this morning.
It's a cool start, around about 15 degrees Celsius this morning, but as the riders head down into the Var, temperatures will soar to 35 degrees Celsius, making tough roads even harder.
The first sprint of the day came at Saint-Martin-du-Var, 2.5 hours into the race. Jamaluddin Abdu-Japarov in the green jersey wins it, with Max Chiandri in the blue jersey in 5th place.
Shortly after the sprint, the Frenchman Laurent Jalabert, who took 2nd place, has a front wheel puncture.
At the first feeding station, 104 kilometres covered, a group of 24 riders had broken clear, but they were only a few seconds ahead of the main field. Fabio Roscioli, taking on his feeding bag, was going away on his own. Roscioli was now planning a long escape. If it was to be successful, he could expect to be in the lead for almost 5 hours. Behind Roscioli, a small group had counter-attacked. Indurain himself was enjoying his birthday, as only riders who he didn't fear overall were now on the attack. And so this long breakaway by Fabio Roscioli is paying off at the moment. He's staying clear, having gone away at that 73-kilometre point. With that group of riders, which included Stephen Roach, they went back to the main field. And this is a very strange composition at this chase group. I think what has happened, Paul, is the sprinters, all interested in that green jersey worn now by Abdu-Japarov, which really is up to grabs after the ride yesterday in the Alps. They've all come together in a breakaway. Very strange composition.
It's very strange, but for them it's an important trophy, the green jersey. And it was actually Olaf Ludwig was the first to move away there, and straight away Abdu-Japarov reacted, and so did Laurent Jalabert, who is 4th overall in the points at the moment. So it really is strange to see them there, but today is their day. The climbers have had their last 2 days in the mountains, so I think the climbers, after the hard days they've had, are taking a little bit of a rest.
And the group here are making inroads into that breakaway now of Fabio Rossioli, but they're all pulling away from the main field, which has slipped back to almost 19 minutes now. So they're gambling and letting this little group run away, because the sprinters and the teams who would normally chase down the escapees of a long day like this are all here in this group, and they're having to do all of the work themselves to try and catch up with Fabio Rossioli. There's a chance to have a look at Rossioli, who's zigzagging his way up. He could be making his way up now towards the climb of the Col d'Espigulier. But it's it's a lovely area if you ever want to come cycling in this area, or indeed in your car to tour down this part of the south of France. But to the riders, these roads are never straight. They twist and turn, they kick and they dive. It is in fact ideal countryside for one man to slip away.
It's been a very hard day all day today, because as you say, these roads are narrow and there is never any flat at all. You're either going uphill or downhill. He's got about 500 meters now to go to the top of the Col de l'Espigulier. Then he's got a long, very dangerous descent down into the valley, and that's where he might stand a chance of recuperating a little bit. And it would be interesting to see what happens with the group behind.
So a very big man, Rossioli, and you can see now why he didn't enjoy climbing the Alps too much. Rather heavy for the big mountains, but he's got plenty of buffer here, with a lead over the main field of almost 19 minutes, and he's around about 9 minutes now on that group, chasing group, but there's still time to pull him back. But this will go down as a marvellous escape if he doesn't get caught, because he took a gamble when he left a big group just as they came through the first feeding station of the day. He decided to go it alone because the main field had pulled into sight the breakaway, which included Stephen Roach, and sadly he's gone back into the field as well. And that was all happening at around the 105 kilometre point today. Now you can see these narrow roads. They hang on the sides of the mountain slopes here. You also can see the spots of rain that's on the camera, because in fact the weather is becoming overcast and very, very humid indeed. The sort of weather that could build up to a thunderstorm, and if it comes during the race, that will make these roads treacherous.
There's the top of the Col de l'Espigulier. As Rossioli puts his hand up again, he isn't allowed to take any drinks on board over the top, and that's probably what he wants to do there. On the ascent of any climb, you're not allowed to take any. There we are, he's just taking a drink as we go down the descent into the valley, and he's got still 9 minutes lead over those chasers.
And now we can give you some idea of what it's like to go downhill here on one of these very narrow, sinuous tracks down in the south of France. And just look at this, Fabio Rossioli trying to get as much time out of this descent as he can. His back wheel jumping around a little bit, but Paul, this is a very technical descent indeed.
It really is, and you can see that why riders sometimes on the descents in the Tour de France don't reach maximum speeds like 110 kilometers an hour, 70 miles an hour sometimes they can attain. But on a technical descent like this, they're braking, accelerating all the time. They won't be using the top gear because they have to keep the gear down quite low so that when they go into the corner, they can accelerate out of it again. And taking all the risks necessary there, Rossioli, to try and make sure that that lead doesn't come down, and it doesn't seem to be falling at the moment. You see, he's only doing around about 70 k's an hour there.
And here are the main chasers coming now up the Col de l'Espigulier, and what a lovely picture it is looking down now on the riders of the Tour de France. But they're still a long way behind Fabio Rossioli, you know, and there's still a lot of chasing required, especially on that dangerous descent, which is next up for this lot. And back in the field, which is still going further and further behind. 19 minutes is the latest time check, and we hear from out on the course that Richard Virenque is trying to slip away from the main field. The chase group is over the top. They're still almost 9 minutes behind Fabio Rossioli. They still have a lot of work to do before we arrive at Marseille. We'll be back after the break.
Welcome back. This is Marseille, the second biggest city in France, the home of the fish dish, bouillabaisse, and the town, funnily enough, where Popeye Doyle got his heroin habit in the French Connection films. It's also, of course, the destination point for today's stage of the Tour de France. But right now, the city has its attention very much fixed on another sports story, the scandal which has enveloped the town's football club, the Olympique, and its most influential citizen, Bernard Tapie. Tapie is a familiar name to cycling fans. As the owner of the Look teams in the 1980s, he backed Tour winners like Bernard Hinault and Greg LeMond. His million-pound contracts and Porsches for stage wins were all part of an approach which helped bring the big money days to professional cycling. But after Hinault's retirement, Tapie lost interest in the sport, turning his attention instead to football. 7 years ago, he bought Olympique Marseille, giving France's second biggest city a big money club to compete with any of her more glamorous rivals. Compete they certainly have. 5 years of Marseille domination climaxed on the 26th of May this year when they defeated mighty AC Milan to become the first French club ever to be champions of Europe. The boost to Marseille was huge. For years, organized crime, corruption and drug trafficking have built the city a diabolical reputation with the rest of France. But at last here was a chance for them to hold their heads up and be applauded by their usually snooty countrymen. When 3 days later Marseille added another French championship to their honours, it truly seemed that supreme success was theirs. However, in the next few days, it was all to turn very sour. On May the 20th, Marseille had played a game against the relegation-bound club Valenciennes, and naturally enough, they'd won. However, allegations quickly arose that in order to guarantee themselves an easy run-up to their European Cup final, Marseille had paid 3 of the Valenciennes squad £25,000. There have been firm denials, of course, from Olympique Marseille's offices on the Avenue de Prado, but players from both teams have now confirmed the charges. Olympique's Director General is behind bars awaiting trial for corruption, and at Marseille's Palace of Justice, the finger is pointing ever closer to Bernard Tapie, a man who's already been ousted from his role as government minister by a business scandal. So Marseille's triumph has turned to disgrace in just 2 months. The arrival of the Tour de France here later on today will help take the townspeople's minds off the affair, but it won't be easy. Their football club could face suspension, its staff possible jail sentences. That's it from me. Back to Phil.
And thank you, James. Well, this is the lone hero of the stage today. There's no doubt about that now. Fabio Roscioli here talking to his team manager. The breakaway is very much on, and it looks now as though he will survive towards the finish, despite the nasty climb that's coming towards the end. Take a look at the statistics today. Here they are, 150 starters rolling out this morning. 31 riders have now given up the Tour de France. Lance Armstrong being told by his team manager Jim Okovits not to start this morning after his ride through the Alps yesterday, and abandoning on the route when he was dropped by the main field, Yvon Le Danois from the Word Perfect team. Average speed fairly slow today, nearly 36 kilometers an hour, but we're still on a record Tour average of 41.318. And the jerseys today being worn, yellow of course for Miguel Indurain, the polka dot for the King of the Mountains is Tony Rominger, and the green jersey, and we can see him in the breakaway now, being worn by Jamaluddin Abdu Japarov. 1 kilometre now to the summit of the last climb of the day, and this undoubtedly the hardest one.
Well, you can be sure that will cheer him up an awful lot to know that he's just got 1 kilometre to go to the top of this climb, and it just plummets then down to the seaside here, where he'll finish and take a superb stage victory, which really is deserved. To see a man stay in front of the race for 183 kilometres along those roads that come through the Var really is unbelievable. I know them very well, I've trained there, and they really are difficult roads.
Well, this is the area where they run the early season stage race, the Tour of the Mediterranean, in which my co-commentator Paul Schoen, he'd never tell you, I will, twice finished 4th, won the points competition and the King of the Mountains, and won a stage of that race. So he knows these roads extremely well indeed. But if we're looking for records, well, Fabio Roscioli won't be setting any records with this great breakaway today, although he might grab a place in the top 10 or so riders. The longest ever lone breakaway in the Tour de France was done back in 1947 by Albert Bourlon. His breakaway was 253 kilometres between Carcassonne and Luchon, and he won them by 16 minutes. But of course, in the modern days of cycling, you don't normally get long breaks like that. Look at this now.
He really is suffering to get to the top of this climb. I think it's only his pride is stopping him from getting off and walking here, but here we are, 4 kilometres to go. We go round the corner here to the top of the climb, but you can see just how hard it is, how much effort these riders put in. There's the banner, he knows he's got to the top. He's going to be a very happy man now. Really amazing effort just to get over the top of the last 30 metres there.
But over he is, and now it's an equally steep descent. and then he'll be onto the promenade and the long straight. And 9 minutes 52 seconds, Roscioli has conceded nothing at all since the Col de l'Espigulier over those 8 chasers. We had a puncture to Pulnikov, his teammate in that chase group. But a couple of questions. Mr. Steele has telephoned us to say why we didn't refer to the 1961 winner of the Tour de France as a man who had led from start to finish. Well, the reason is because he didn't, but everybody often thinks he did. Jacques Anquetil, in fact, conceding for just half a day the Maillot Jaune when it passed over to his teammate André Darragard on the morning half stage. So that clears that one up. And Mr. Brooks has asked, and in fact many of you have asked us, how do they do time the riders and then calculate their overall position when they cross the finishing line, when they do finish in the big bunches on occasion. Every rider is placed by a photo finish camera, but providing there is not a 1 second clear gap between the wheels, all of the riders are credited with the same time as far as the overall placings go. For example, this chase group of 8 riders today, if they cross the line together and the camera does not show a 1 second time difference between any wheels, then they will all be given the same time.
Well, Roscioli knows that he's got the victory now. Just a quick look over his shoulder to his team manager, and he punches his arm in the air. He knows that he's got it. That's a magnificent feeling when you've still got 2-3 kilometres to go.
I bet it is. I bet it is. He's already done up his racing jersey there, so he looks nice and smart at the finish. I'm quite sure he'll put his sunglasses on shortly, which have been passed up to him in the last few kilometres. You can see them hanging out of his back pocket. Last drink, out goes the souvenir. And now it must be a marvellous feeling for Fabio Roscioli. The hard work of the last 4.5 hours or so, all behind him now. This is a little bit of a lap of honour along the promenade here as we look across to the beautiful Mediterranean. France's #1 port, welcoming the Tour de France and welcoming an Italian victor. Now the race for second place on the last little climb of the day. Laurent Jalabert at the back here, just on the wheel of Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov, and the pace being set at the front. I think it's Valery Tebaldi up there with Massimo Girotto.
And Pulnikov as well has joined the leaders there. The 3 riders setting the pace as they go over the top of this climb, but it's amazing to notice that Laurent Jalabert, normally a better climber than Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov, hasn't managed to put any distance between himself and the little man from Uzbekistan.
And here's a happy man. The effort's coming all too easy now, despite all of the time he's been fighting for those few minutes that have gradually grown and grown and grown. And in fact, the latest time check coming in, the main field are 23 minutes behind him. That chase group is round about 8 minutes. They've even stopped giving us time checks on that group. That'll be a superb sprint though when it comes in for second place. We've got the fastest men left in the Tour de France in that chasing group, Olaf Ludwig and Jamaluddin Abdou-Japarov and Laurent Jalabert. But now it's the moment of Italy's Fabio Roscioli. A richly deserved victory today on the longest stage of the Tour de France. 7.5 hours for him, even 20 minutes further than that for the main field and Miguel Indurain. But when you're an hour and 19 minutes behind, Indurain won't worry too much about this victory, but it will go down in the great memory bank of Fabio Roscioli. He's never before won a stage of the Tour de France, and now in Marseille he will join a very, very elite list of winners over the years the Tour de France has come here. It's a long, long ride to the line, but I suspect that the 2-arm salute is about due. And thank you, everybody, and there it is, Fabio Roscioli, a great stage winner of the Tour de France today. So 1 kilometre to go for the chase group, which is now split asunder on the climb before the finish here. The sprinters have been dropped. We're left with Valery Tebaldi on the front, pacing here, Massimo Girotto, and sitting at the back, Vladimir Pulnikov, the man who is gaining most by being in this breakaway today. As the time counting down since Roscioli finished, they closed in, but only by a little bit. And they've left Tebaldi to make the pace. I wonder if Carrera can take a 1-2 here, because Pulnikov is the teammate of Roscioli, and he's going early. He wants to make it a 1-2. A great day out for Stephen Roche's Carrera team, and for that matter, Claudio Chiappucci's team. They're going to get 1 and 2. I don't think Massimo Girotto's got the sprint in him now to take over from Vladimir Pulnikov, who's got gear problems. His gears have slipped away and he's dropped out of it. And I think, in fact, Girotto is going to get it. Completely messed his gears up and now he's lost it. And he'll be very upset about that. Girotto gets second place. Pulnikov is third. In fourth place is Tebaldi. And now Laurent Jalabert sits down, slips it into top gear, goes again. Now comes the Tashkent Tornado on the left, but I think his legs have played out today. And though he's coming now, he just took a little bit of slipstream and makes it look easy in the end. Abdu Japarov taking the place there from the rest of that breakaway. And here comes the big field with the captain of the ship, Miguel Indurain, safely in the centre there. He won't be worried about the riders who are escaping today. They'll do nothing to his overall lead in the Tour de France. Look at the time, conceding the best part of 21 minutes. Max Chiandri on the left of our picture trying to get at least a point towards that green jersey competition, but he's being washed away by the sprinters here, who will finish off the field very nicely. The rider coming in there looks to me as though it might well have been Jan Zverada who brought them home, and yes it was, and quite a long way down. And in fact, the field themselves split up on the running. The Italians having a great Tour de France. Now it's Fabio Roscioli getting their second stage win in almost 7.5 hours out there on the open hot roads today. Girotto takes second place, Pulnikov is third, but they come in over 7 minutes behind. The sprinters beaten by that last climb. Abdu Japarov, the best of them, he finishes in 5th place. Fabio Roscioli in the saddle today for almost 8 hours, and I'm not surprised he's happy. It's the first time he's ever won a stage in the Tour de France. It was a great day for the Carrera team, and straight after the finish, Paul Sherwin spoke to the Carrera rider, Stephen Roach.
Steve, a great ride by your teammate Fabio Roscioli today. Was that planned beforehand, or was it just when he jumped away from that group that you were with?
Well, it was kind of, you can never really plan these kind of things, but it was kind of, we said we'd try and get somebody away because, like, we've been so long a stage, like, Vanessa's couldn't control the whole race, like, so we thought if we get a group away, we'd be okay, but we never thought, like, somebody would go away on his own like that for 200 kilometres, you know.
It's good for the team spirit, I should think, after the last 2 days in the Alps. It's been terrible for everybody.
Yeah, definitely, you know, like, even today, like, even behind the bunch, like, it wasn't too many attacks, but still everybody was on their knees. Everybody was just happy that Vanessa made a nice tempo and everybody sit there, like.
Now, you had quite a hard time in the Alps, and they say that there's a little bit of a back problem. Has your doctor come out to try and sort that out before the Pyrenees?
No, he came last night, but like, it only kind of, there's no miracles, like, it just helped the pain, like, but something that made me get over the Pyrenees better than did it to the Alps, like, but at least it'll help me get through the end of the tour, I hope, without having too much pain, like.
Another yellow jersey for Miguel Indurain, and another cake as well, because the crowd here in Marseille remembering too that today he is 29 years old. Overall, though, no change really in the Tour de France. All of the men close to Indurain finishing right alongside him today in the big field that came in so far behind Roscioli. Remember, all of the results on the Tour de France can be found on page 350 on Fortel. Now, our competition on Sunday, we'd like you to try and name the winner of the stage. Those of you who do will go into the hat, and the winner that comes out will win a yellow jersey signed by the leader, which should be Indurain, and the winner of Sunday's stage. This is the telephone number for you to ring with your entry. 0839 44 4554. Tomorrow, the race stays in the south of France. We head off to Montpellier. I think today, though, the riders will have learned their lesson. I wonder if a low man will escape, or whether indeed the sprinters will again have their say. But today it was a low man. It was a super breakaway by Fabio Roscioli. He came home ahead of the field to give Italy another stage win in the Tour de France. Until tomorrow night, goodbye.